Hello and welcome to our short session on creating a positive learning community in your course room. I'm Dr. Shelley Safian, and today I'd like to share with you some of the tips for online teaching, particularly when it comes to creating a positive learning culture and attitude in your course. And some of these tips I have learned the hard way, as in receiving feedback from my students as well as my chairs and directors. And some of them I have learned the easy way, which is from the knowledge of others. So hopefully I can help you improve your positive attitude in your online course room the easy way. What do you think? All right, so when we teach online, we really have to look at building that teacher-student relationship in a totally different way. And especially if you are teaching in a course that you did not create, and therefore you're more of a facilitator than creating the entire environment the way you'd like it, then feedback is the majority of the opportunities we have to teach our students. Yes, we have our online live synchronous sessions that we do with them, and that's really good for building a rapport with our students, letting our personalities show through a little bit and connecting them on a more human-to-human level, if you will. But it's not the focus or the majority of the time that we spend with our students. And the feedback that we provide to them, both to submitted assignments, as well as the replies that we do to the discussion forum, is the substance. That's where we really get to share our knowledge and skills with our students. And as we do this, we have to remember the importance of being specific, because we're all busy, right? Who is not busy? Raise your hand. See, I thought so. Nobody raised their hands. So there were times when you're tempted and maybe just want to write, you did a good job or good work on this. And that's great. Students love to hear that. It's way better than the alternative, right? But it doesn't really teach them anything, does it? There's no sharing of knowledge with that. It's a little bit of empty flattery, right? It's like somebody saying, oh, you look really good today. Well, that's always a nice thing to hear, and who's not going to smile when hearing that, right? But isn't it so much better when somebody says, oh, I really like your hair today. I like that style. That is something that is so much more meaningful, right? And we have to remember that to turn that around to our students and provide that sense of specific, you did a good job. Really? Where did I do a good job? How did I do a good job? Okay, so, and it doesn't need to be a long, drawn-out thing, but one little nugget, I like your hairstyle, is all that it takes to initiate that power of positivity. Now, of course, that's not my line. That's, I don't know, it's like from the 60s or something. I don't know. But the fact is that it's true. And positivity does have power with our students. So as we try to make a difference with them and really get through to them, one of the things that I like to do that I kind of figured out on my own several years ago is don't accuse them of doing things or not doing things. And sometimes it's very logical to say, you did not include this part of the assignment, okay? How is that accusing them? It's stating a fact. However, students, especially those in a more sensitive state, can absolutely feel that you are accusing them. And so instead, you can share the same fact, only instead put it on yourself. Take the responsibility, if you will, and say, I cannot find this part of the assignment. Because the truth is, that might be the real truth, okay? Maybe you expected to see it in the first paragraph, and the student put it in the last paragraph. Well, why would I look there, okay? But it also, saying I cannot find it, gives the student the benefit of the doubt, if you will, that the information is actually there. You just can't find it. So it can invite and leave the door open for the student to email you and say, oh no, here it is in the last paragraph. Oh, thank you. All right. So that is a really small way that you can change your language to be a little more positive and help that door stay open between instructor and student so that you can provide them with more information, okay? Because that's why we're here, right? Share the knowledge. All right. So also consider something else, especially, well, either the discussion forums or when grading an assignment. And this I also discovered, and it was reinforced when I was doing my research for this presentation, that maybe there's a puzzle piece missing, okay? Consider the initial assignment's wording, especially if you did not write it, okay? Was clarity missing? Maybe your expectations of what should be there are not spelled out in the assignment, and therefore, how would the student know to include it? In addition, I find that a sticking point might also be, were there assumptions made in the assignment? For example, you could have 5 weeks, the first 5 weeks of the course, the assignments all specifically state you must have 2 to 4 scholarly sources cited in APA format, okay? But now we're in week 6. Now it's very easy for you and me to assume that the student by now would get that the citations need to be in APA format. However, if it's not in the assignment to remind them, that could be one of the reasons why you didn't get what you expected to see. So then you have a choice of changing your expectations to match the assignment, or you might, prior to the deadline of the assignment, provide them either in your weekly session, if you do a weekly session, or if you do an extra announcement. This is what I did, is I found my students were not getting certain things. So I created a little video like this, you know, voice over PowerPoint, and I put it up in the announcements, and with a header as this will help you with your grades or something like that. And then this way I get to share my expectations with them, my knowledge on how to do it, whether it's a citation or whatever. And they get to learn something that we feel is important for them to learn, whether it's a part of the original or not. And then, of course, I would suggest that you share this with whoever created your course, if it was not you, to maybe get that improvement input into the assignment for the next semester. So let's talk now about constructive feedback and negative feedback. How many faculty development sessions have you been in where this was a topic of conversation? And yet still it can be challenging to remember. Okay, so I find that when you are teaching online, first of all, we have that opportunity to look at what the student has presented and take a step back, take a deep breath. Okay, Now I can provide the properly worded feedback instead of getting caught up in some negative rumbling of stress and being a little overwhelmed and busy, busy, busy. Okay. So we might find that we can change negative feedback, such as this citation is incomplete, which might be taken a little harshly, even though you've told them 47 times. Okay. Or maybe blaming them. And we can turn that into a constructive feedback by adding the knowledge we want them to have. So say this citation is incomplete, you need to include the URL or DOI number along with the citation. Please contact the Writing Center for tips on how to properly APA cite. Okay, so you see how we've taken that short version, which, and I admit sometimes I'm guilty of being a little brusque, okay, which can be easily interpreted as harshness, and just turn that into an opportunity to teach them what we really, really want them to know. What sometimes is so frustrating about getting through to the student. And that builds on our reinforcement, which you know is foundational in teaching, is you can't tell somebody something once and they get it. You have to reinforce the concepts. And especially because we have to remember that we're not the only ones who are busy. So are our students. So we need to look at how we can make sure that the feedback we provide with the students is meaningful. It has valuable content. We're developing that instructor-student relationship because this is essentially all we have to do that. Yes, we want to motivate them to do well. And the most painful of all things, encourage critical thinking. I don't know about you, but I think in teaching, I find that trying to get students to think is, oh, you don't make me think. I like it so much better in my other classes where all I had to do was find something on the internet and copy and paste it and reiterate it. And I don't need to engage my brain. Well, you know what? We're going to make you engage your brain because that's why we're here, right? It's our legal obligation. It's our ethical obligation because we're part of the institution that's taking their money. So we are responsible for delivering value to this whole educational experience. And especially with what we do, where we prepare our students for successful careers after graduation. We have to give them things to carry forward. And we all know, both in undergrad as well as graduate level courses, that critical thinking is key. So how can we do this? Well, the easiest way, honestly, is to ask questions. Instead of saying, where do you think you're going to get that? You know, maybe say, well, that was a really bad example. Okay, let me try again. How about instead of saying, you did not state from where you will get people to participate in your survey. This is a good example, okay? You can instead say, from where will you get people to participate in your survey? See, it's essentially the same words. We're delivering the same, you have a hole in your paper, but instead of being negative, you left this out, this is terrible, we are prompting that critical thinking. Oh, well, I thought I just had to create a survey and just give it to people. I never thought about where I would find people to participate. Okay? And that's why we're here, right? That's what it's all about. So we want to make sure that we are setting clear expectations in the original assignment. And one of the benefits that I find about teaching the same course in continuing terms is I really learn a lot from my students. And one of the things that I learn from my students is what they find confusing, or maybe it's knowledge that I thought they were going to bring to my class, which evidently they don't have. So I can find specific ways of sharing this information and filling those gaps. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to include specific actions to be taken. And again, we need to read through these assignments, and if you have expectations that you want them to do something that's not included in the assignment, that's what the announcements are for. Okay? In addition, I found from teaching the same course multiple times that my students were in large numbers. My students were coming to my course without specific knowledge that I thought they would have had in a previous course. So I created a video, just like I said before, and like I'm doing now, right? Is just a voiceover PowerPoint, and I put it in the announcement board, and I said, here, this will help you improve your grade. So I'm doing what I can to fill in those gaps, which makes it much more positive and a better learning environment for your students. And it also is less frustrating for us as faculty as we're trying to make sure that we are teaching them something and sharing that knowledge. So again, this is something, of course, you've learned in 4,000 faculty development sessions that you've had, is always personalize, always begin with the student's name. Absolutely. And please, and I know you're probably doing this, but make sure you pay attention to how the student's name is spelled. Because some students, Mary is no longer absolutely M-A-R-Y. It's just, so that's an important thing. It's a sign of respect, and it's also a sign of professionalism, as we all know. And we need to include that in our teachings. Whether you're teaching business or history or healthcare, we do have to include professionalism in our learning experience, okay? And then when you are communicating with them, use specific examples from their work. Give them and I just copy and paste a sentence, okay? Or even a partial sentence or a couple of sentences and say, this is a really good idea, okay? And then, of course, you have those other sentences, which are opportunities for improvement, okay? But it gives us that ability to provide that balance and also that specificity of, oh, okay, so now I see exactly what you're talking about. Because you're looking at a paper that's, 8 pages long. How do I know what you're talking about when you say you need to be, provide more details, whatever, all right? But when you can provide that example in quotations, because we also want to make sure we don't plagiarize, right? And then that can give us good balance in our feedback. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the box. You're all familiar with this box, right? Okay, this is the little teeny tiny box to give our feedback in. This is the area that we have, the teeny tiny box, to write all this good stuff and all this bad stuff and, opportunities for improvement. And I just want you to know that not long ago, I finished writing a 1,575-page textbook. No problem. This little box freaks me out. It overwhelms me. Because how am I going to teach the student? How am I going to say all the things I want to say to them, both good and opportunities for improvement, when I only have this little tiny box? And that is often what ignites my brusqueness, my being a little too brief or harsh, or just focus on what needs to be improved. And, the good stuff is the other stuff that I don't mention. Excuse me. I am intimidated by this box. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, so some of you are sitting there saying, well, Shelley, as you keep typing, the box continues. It's not just this little tiny space. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I forget that. And so that's on my list of things to remind myself to not let the box intimidate me into being brusque and a little too myopic in what my job is here. I have to remember that my job is to teach specific things, to share knowledge, and not just, here's what you did wrong, see if you want to fix it, and bye. That's mine. You may have different feelings about the box, but we have to think about the box. And there's a couple of things I want to point out to you about the box. First of all, notice the buttons below. Add a file. So, and this is something I'm thinking about starting to employ, is download the paper, use track changes, and you can then upload, and comments, and then you can upload the file, but make sure you put in the box, see attached, okay? And there's also, for those of you who may be better at verbally expressing the feedback instead of writing, we have a record audio button. Now, this is really interesting because as I was doing the research for this presentation, a couple of different sources mentioned provide your feedback orally. And I thought that was very interesting. Now, I personally prefer the written word. I can edit it, which I need to do more. I just think it, students can copy and paste it and use it as a reference. But I do know that there are some of you who prefer to speak it, and you have that opportunity. And I would say, make sure you put in the box that there's a recording attached. I have a colleague who has used record audio to provide feedback, and ended up in a negative turned positive laughing episode with a student where the student complained that there was no feedback on the assignment, and then she had to point out to the student that it was recorded, and then they went, oh, I didn't see that, ha 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 ha. Okay, so I just want to point that out to you as an option, because when our workspace is more conducive to the way we prefer to share our knowledge and our skills, then I think the ultimate results will automatically be better, okay? And for me to be able to verbalize the fact that the box intimidates me, I think is part of the healing. Okay, all right. You'll also notice in the top, right under the word feedback, you have the little YouTube symbol, so you can put in a thing like this, right? VoiceOver, PowerPoint. You can put a single picture, and of course you can put in links. And so whatever is your style, if you haven't thought about it or you forgot about it or whatever, I just wanted to remind you that the box has lots of different sides to it. And you might want to consider altering your methodology for providing the feedback into something that you might find less intimidating. The box. All right, so when we respond to students and give them feedback on their writing, it is incredibly labor intensive. I mean, who would not prefer a good old-fashioned multiple choice quiz, auto-graded, of course, as opposed to reading an 8-page paper and providing valuable feedback, right? But we have to remember that that's our job. I mean, and again, this is a key part of our job. This is why we are here. And sometimes when we say the same thing to the same student 100 times and it has no effect, it falls on deaf ears, even when you're not using the audio button. It falls on deaf ears. That is frustrating because we're sharing the knowledge, we're teaching to provide knowledge, education that they can then move forward into their careers. And when it does fall on ears that don't want to listen, that is frustrating. But we have to remember that, again, we're online. We get to take that step back, take that deep breath, and maybe set aside a small percentage, if you want, to give the student an option to rework and resubmit. Now, I use this in my classroom, and it was pointed out to me very recently that maybe I take this too far. I mean, okay, maybe giving a student 25 out of 100 points just to get their attention so they would rework it, make it better, and resubmit for that 100% is overboard. And I admit it, and I appreciate that it was pointed out to me. But maybe a little much small percentage would be better to still get their attention and still give them that opportunity to rework and resubmit. And it all depends on the particular assignment, the purpose of the assignment, and on you. I mean, whether you want to, I mean, this is more work for us because now I have to read and grade this twice. I find I like it when it can suit the goal. For example, we have a final project in my course, and the students get to work a section of that final project like every other week. They submit it, and I tell them, especially in the live sessions, that the purpose of this is to give me the opportunity to provide you with feedback so that when you submit that final project, it's going to be aces, baby. Okay? Instead of giving them, oh, you misinterpreted this direction and this is missing and I'm doing that again in negative, right? But the fact is that in the final project, it's too late. They won't have time to improve it and maybe submit for a better grade. So I do that. I like that in those because they not only can get rewarded for this particular section, then they get another reward when that improved part is part of the final project. But again, this is up to you and it is recommended. So think about it. Maybe 1 or 2 of your projects, okay? It's yours, your decision. All right. The last thing that I like to do, and this is kind of funny. I mean, funny because I'm going to tell you a story from just this morning, okay? I try to end feedback, especially in the box, with please email me if you'd like to discuss this further. And this is an evolution because I used to say if you have any additional questions. And then I kind of found, well, some students were intimidated in that. It's like, I don't have a question, I have a complaint. I don't like the way you graded my work or whatever it might be. So I landed on discuss because it seems to me as a neutral word, okay? And maybe you want to learn more, which is really my intent, is because I want to teach you more. And the funny thing is, just this morning, I had a student a couple of days ago who requested a phone appointment. And so it was scheduled for this morning. And I said to her, how can I help you? And she said, well, you wrote on my thing that I did a good job, blah, blah, blah. And please email me if you'd like to discuss this further. So what do I need to discuss with you? I said, I gave you a 100 on the thing. There's nothing. I just kind of put that there. So it was funny, but then she really did have something else she wanted to discuss, which was probably the underlying prompter for the meeting. But the point is that I love it when students ask questions because it tells me that they really want to learn. And that's why I'm here, is to actually teach them something. And so this might be something that you could use to keep that door open, even if it is the door to your email inbox, and to encourage students to come and talk things through. You have the power to go back and change a grade. You have the power to clarify expectations one way or the other. Maybe it's your expectations that needed to be clarified when the student says, but the assignment didn't say to include that. Okay, so this instructor-student relationship is actually best, I believe, when it's a two-way learning street. So I hope you have found some of my tips to be helpful to you. And if you want to discuss anything or share some things that you do with me, you now have my email address. Thanks and have a great day.